Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. We live in an age of unprecedented information. With a few taps on a screen, we can access the sum of human knowledge. Yet, a strange thing is happening. More and more of us are actively choosing to turn away, to unplug from the news. This isn't just about preferring cat videos to current events. It's a deep psychological response to a world saturated with data. Today, we're exploring the phenomenon of news avoidance, diving into the psychology of why our brains are telling us to retreat from the headlines. The feeling is called information overload, though you might know it by its more modern nicknames, infobesity or information anxiety. It's that sense of drowning you get when you have too much information to make a clear decision. The idea isn't new. Futurist Alvin Toffler predicted this back in 1970 in his book, Future Shock. He warned that a rapid increase in information would overwhelm people, leading to stress and withdrawal. Fast forward to today, and his prediction seems eerily accurate. Think about your average day. Push notifications from news apps buzz on your phone. Your social media feed is an endless scroll of updates. Cable news channels shout headlines 24/7. This digital deluge isn't just annoying, it has real cognitive and emotional effects. It shatters our focus, fuels indecision, and spikes our stress levels. Our brains, trying to keep up, are in a constant state of multitasking, which leads to mental exhaustion. It becomes harder to process and remember anything effectively. Our attention spans shrink. A 2020 study from the Pew Research Center found that a staggering 2/3 of American adults felt worn out by the sheer volume of news. When your mental and emotional bandwidth is maxed out, turning off the fire hose of information feels less like ignorance and more like an act of self-preservation. While this feels like a uniquely modern problem, the anxiety of having too much to know has haunted us for centuries. As far back as the 3rd or 4th century BCE, the writer of Ecclesiastes lamented, "Of making many books there is no end." In the 1st century AD, the Roman philosopher Seneca the Elder complained that the abundance of books is a distraction. These ancient gripes show a long-standing human struggle with managing knowledge. The first major turning point was the invention of the printing press around 1453. Suddenly, books and pamphlets could be mass-produced, sparking an information revolution. This fueled the Renaissance and the scientific revolution, but it also created new anxieties. Scholars of the era worried about the confusing and harmful overabundance of data. They developed new tools to cope, like note-taking systems and reference books, just to manage the flow. Jump to the 18th and 19th centuries, and you see the same panic with the explosion of newspapers and novels. Historians point out that all the questions we ask today about information addiction, superficial social media, and the spread of misinformation were first being asked back then. So our current struggle isn't new, it's just the latest chapter. The key difference today is the sheer scale, the blinding speed, and the inescapable nature of the information coming at us. So why do we tune out? The decision to avoid the news is a complex act of psychological self-defense. Let's break down the main drivers. First, there's emotional and compassion fatigue. The old newsroom saying, "If it bleeds, it leads," is backed by modern data. Negative headlines get more clicks, but this constant diet of tragedy, conflict, and disaster comes at a steep psychological price. It leads to something called compassion fatigue. This is a state of emotional and physical exhaustion from being repeatedly exposed to the suffering of others. It was first identified in doctors and nurses, but in our digital age it's become a society-wide issue. When we are constantly bombarded with heartbreaking stories, our capacity for empathy gets overwhelmed. We become numb, we withdraw. It's a way to stop the feeling of dread. In more extreme cases, this can become vicarious traumatization. This is when a person develops actual trauma-like symptoms, anxiety, flashbacks, hypervigilance, from indirect exposure to a traumatic event through media. Research has shown a direct link between how much media people watch about events like mass shootings or natural disasters and the development of these symptoms. The constant availability of graphic, unfiltered content on social media has made this risk much worse. Then there's the internal mental battle. Our minds crave consistency. The psychologist Leon Festinger developed a theory for this called cognitive dissonance. It's the mental discomfort we feel when new information challenges our core beliefs. To get rid of that discomfort, we can change our belief, justify our actions, or, and this is the most common response, simply avoid the conflicting information. News avoidance can be an extreme way of managing cognitive dissonance. If you hold strong political beliefs, you might actively avoid news sources that present an opposing view, just to avoid the mental stress of having your worldview challenged. This is closely linked to confirmation bias, our natural tendency to seek out, interpret, and remember information that confirms what we already believe. In today's media landscape, it's easier than ever to build a personalized news bubble. Social media algorithms are masters at this, creating filter bubbles or echo chambers that shield us from different opinions. This selective exposure makes us feel comfortable, but it also contributes to a more polarized and less informed society. The modern media landscape itself is designed in a way that amplifies these psychological pulls. The 24/7 news cycle, born from cable channels and the internet, is always on. This constant stream of breaking news and alerts triggers what some call headline anxiety or headline stress. The relentless pace and sensationalism can activate our body's fight-or-flight response, leading to chronic stress. Even having a news channel on in the background, consumed passively, can have a negative effect on our psyche. And then there's social media. For a growing number of people, especially younger generations, platforms like TikTok, X, and Facebook are the primary source of news. But these platforms aren't designed to deliver balanced, high-quality information. Their algorithms are built to maximize engagement, which often means they prioritize emotionally charged, sensational, and extreme content. This creates a distorted and overwhelmingly negative picture of the world. On top of that, you have context collapse, where a credible news report appears right next to a piece of misinformation, a personal update from a friend, and an ad for sneakers. This makes it incredibly difficult to judge the credibility of anything, fostering distrust and encouraging people to disengage entirely. When large numbers of people turn away from the news, the consequences ripple out from the individual to threaten the health of our societies. A well-informed public is the bedrock of a functioning democracy. Historically, news consumption is linked to higher political knowledge and civic participation. When people avoid the news, they miss crucial information about elections, policies, and local issues. Research shows that lower news use is associated with less political engagement. This creates a worrying cycle. People who are less interested in politics avoid the news, and that avoidance further decreases their engagement. This can lead to a democracy where the voices of the disengaged are simply not heard. You might think that disengaging would lead to less political fighting, but the opposite can be true. Because of confirmation bias, the people who do stay engaged often consume news from highly partisan sources. This deepens the echo chambers, where different perspectives are never encountered, leading to a more entrenched and polarized public. So what's the answer? The solution isn't to simply give up or to wish for a return to a simpler time. It's about finding a balance and charting a new course. For us as individuals, this means cultivating mindful consumption. First, set boundaries. Decide on specific, limited times for news, maybe 15 minutes in the morning and 15 in the evening. Create media-free zones, like during meals or before bed. Second, turn off those push notifications. Reclaim your attention. Seek out information on your own terms instead of being constantly interrupted. Third, curate your sources. Intentionally choose a few trusted, high-quality news outlets that prioritize factual, balanced reporting over sensationalism. And fourth, find a way to take action. A major driver of news avoidance is a feeling of helplessness. Counteract this by taking small, tangible steps. Donate to a cause you care about, sign a petition, or volunteer. This can restore a powerful sense of agency. The news industry also has a huge role to play, and many are starting to recognize it. One promising movement is solutions journalism. This approach focuses not just on problems, but on reporting on the responses to those problems. By showing how people are trying to solve issues, it provides a more complete and hopeful picture. Studies show these stories increase engagement and can help rebuild trust. Another movement is slow journalism. As an antidote to the frantic 24/7 cycle, slow journalism advocates for well-researched, in-depth stories that prioritize quality over quantity and context over clicks. Finally, we all need to boost our media literacy. This is the ability to access, analyze, and evaluate the media we consume. It equips us with the critical thinking skills to spot bias, identify misinformation, and understand how media messages are designed to persuade us. The age of information overload has challenged us to figure out how to stay informed without becoming overwhelmed. Tuning out is often a rational act of self-preservation in a media environment that feels toxic, but the risks of a disengaged society are too great to ignore. The path forward is about forging a new, healthier relationship with information. It's about individuals becoming mindful consumers, and an industry that shifts its values from clicks and outrage to context and well-being. By embracing these changes, we can learn to navigate the currents of the information age, staying engaged with our world without losing ourselves in the process. Thanks for listening to Fun Facts Online.